Welcome back to another video, everyone. So I know I'm late to the whole tier list trend. People were doing this months ago for pretty much everything. But yesterday I was on the website, I typed in Crash games, and this template was already on there. I'm sure it's been done already by multiple people, but I thought it'd be fun to give it a shot myself in a video. And that's what it is, it's just for fun. Now here's the thing, I'm going to be doing two separate lists for this video. The first list I'm going to try and do it objectively, so there might be a game that I really love, but I have to place it lower on the list for whatever reason. But the second list will be purely based on my own personal enjoyment on these games. That being said, let's get into the tier list, shall we? Crash Bandicoot 1. I've put them all in order across here. I think that's the correct order at least. These are the Game Boy games, but I'm not going to be ranking these because I haven't played them myself. I've played all of these, I haven't played these yet. I do plan on checking them out though, but right now I can't rank them. Crash Bandicoot 1. This game started everything. If it wasn't for this game, we wouldn't have any of the others. For that reason alone, it's legendary. It has to be placed in S tier, but it's more than just the fact that it's the first game. The game still holds up to this day. I know in that game you don't have as many moves as in Crash 2 or 3. Those games added new features, improved upon the original, but the original is still a very good game. I wasn't even born when this game came out, but from what I know, it was an instant classic. It sold very well, and like I mentioned, it was the beginning for this iconic video game character. Without this, we wouldn't have any. I think everyone will agree that it has to go in S tier. It just depends on how you're ranking it. If you're ranking it based on like newer games or how it's aged or something, then yeah, it might go a little bit lower, because Crash 2 improved upon it, it had new moves and all that stuff, but I'm just simply basing it on whether or not it's a good game, what it managed to achieve, stuff like that. Crash 2, like I mentioned a minute ago, it just was an improvement upon the original, so for that reason, it has to go in S tier. Now it seems that Crash Warped is mixed, because for a lot of people it's their favorite in the trilogy, but for a lot of other people it's their least favorite, whether it's because the game was easier, which there's no doubt about it, the game is easier than those two. But another big complaint for people is that it included a bunch of vehicle levels. I don't think the game can be considered bad or worse just because it did something different. The vehicle levels in this game are good. They're good levels. If you want an example of bad vehicle levels, then just look at the Wrath of Cortex. And another complaint about the vehicle levels is that they feel out of place. They're taking away from the original platforming, but again, I don't think doing something different, doing something new, it makes it bad. So because of that, I'm not going to be ranking it any lower. I think they did something new, they did it well, and I mean, there were the driving levels, which I didn't like. Yeah, the driving levels. D tier. No, I'm just kidding. I think they did something new and they did it well in this game. Not only that, but let's talk about some of the characters that were introduced in this game. Dingodile, Uka Uka, Entropy. Dingodile is one of the best characters in Crash in general. You can't imagine Crash without Uka Uka, and not only that, but the boss fights in this game were really good as well. I think they were the best boss fights in a Crash game at this point so far, so it's going in S tier. Next up, we have the original Crash Team Racing. Yeah, I'm putting it in S tier. You know why? Because I think this was their first attempt at making a kart racer, right? And they just managed to make one of the best kart racers of all time. It feels like you have complete total control over the kart in this game. The drifting system is nearly perfect. The music, the tracks, everything about this kart racer was amazing. This game is well respected, but a lot of people don't give it enough credit. I see people sometimes just boil it down to being a Mario Kart clone. It is in a way, but it's not just under Mario Kart. If you're talking about popularity, then sure, because that's what everyone thinks of when they think kart racer. But if we're talking gameplay, CTR is a strong rival to Mario Kart, if not on top. Anyway, let's move on to the last PS1 game, Crash Bash. This is a party game. And I actually do like this game, I have fun on it, but there's no doubt about it, it gets very repetitive. The mini games repeat in every single warp room, and at the end of the day they are pretty much the same thing. Not only that, I'm not going to be basing these games off of like full completion, because most people just play games casually. But when it comes to progressing through this game and getting to the next warp room, you have to do the boss fights, but for the boss fights they require you to not only get the trophies from the main mini games, but you have to get a certain amount of gems and crystals as well. And to get the gems and crystals, you have to replay the mini games even more, so you end up playing the same mini games a lot, especially with the difficulty. So I'll be putting that in B tier. I think it was fun, you know, there were fun mini games in it, but its repetitiveness is going to make me put it there. Next up we have the Wrath of Cortex. It's not as good as the original 3. Though I will say, the soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. I could jam out to these tunes at any day of the week. It's not just about the music though, is it? I don't know, again, the vehicle levels in this, not as big of a fan of them. The cutscenes, I don't know what was going on with the character models, but they just look so stiff. There's fun levels in this game for sure. It also included Crunch, but there's not much to him in this game. He's just sort of like this big evil guy, this Bandicoot that you were supposed to be. He pops in every now and then to say, hey, I'm gonna beat you up. Every single boss fight in this game is Crunch, which I don't mind too much because it does switch things up, but I don't know, just overall it doesn't feel like the game was as well made as the original 3. So I'll be putting this in B tier. Next up we have Crash Nitro Kart. Now this wasn't as good as the original, although there's a lot I like about this. I grew up with this game and I think it is a good game, but there's no doubt about it, the controls aren't as good as they were in the original. They feel extremely clunky and heavy. That feel of having complete control over the car, it's just not here with this. I like the adventure mode in this game. It also has some banging music and fun tracks. I mean, you've got some really good tracks here, but overall it's a well-made game. It works properly, it's fun. It just isn't, it doesn't live up to the original. So I'm going to put it in A tier. A lot of people are going to disagree with that, but it has everything, it just doesn't feel as good as the original. Crash to Insanity. This is one of my favorite Crash games of all time, but there's no doubt about it, this game is broken. I think we all know the story of this game. It had to be scrapped a decent way through development, but they still had to meet their original deadline. Because of that, the game was rushed, it was released in an unfinished, well, unpolished state, and they had to cut a lot of content that was originally planned for it, which is a shame because I still think the game is good, and that's what's annoying about it. Imagine if they were able to extend their deadline and add in any content that they wanted to add in, polish the game up. It would have been so much better, and that's why I think Crash to Insanity deserves a second chance. It is a good game, but there's countless glitches. Missing sound effects, I always thought that was like a weird choice that they made as a kid, but then I realized, oh, I don't think they meant to do that. Just to give you an idea at how broken this game is, the current world record, the current speedrun of this game is 13 minutes. I'm not even joking, speedrunners can beat this game in just over 10 minutes. Someone could have beaten Crash to Insanity in the amount of time that I've spent talking about these games so far. I'm gonna have to put it in B tier. Okay, Crash Tag Team Racing. A lot of people don't like this game. It's not a normal Crash racing game because it's, you know, half of the game you're not even in your kart. You're running around exploring the theme park, and I really like that. For the third Crash racing game, they should have done something different than just a normal kart racer. They might have not needed to go that far with it. They could have done a normal kart racer with the double up mechanic that's in Crash Tag Team Racing. But overall, I think the half and half is quite good. The thing is though, the title of the game, Crash Tag Team Racing, the cover of the game, it's clearly marketed more as a racing game, and the problem with that is that the racing in this game isn't really that good. The controls are nowhere near as good as the original or Crash Nitro Kart, but the platforming side of the game is really good. I think exploring the theme park is a really fun idea. I think that setting works really well in a Crash game. You can have a good time on it, but the racing, and that's probably what you're going to be buying it for. Crash Boom Bang is a pretty bad party game for the DS. Crash of the Titans has its fair share of haters, I think it's safe to say. And the thing you'll hear the most with this game is, it's a good game, it's just not a good Crash game. I don't fully agree with that in a way. I'm not judging it because it's something different. I'm judging it on whether or not it's a good game. And I like the whole hijacking Titans mechanic, I thought that was interesting. The boss fights in this game fucking sucked, apart from Uka Uka, that's about it. It was different, but it was fun, and I know, because I've replayed all of these games over the past year and reviewed them. It had its boring sections where you just had to wait at a specific area and just kill enemies over and over again, sometimes the same enemies over and over again. Overall, I think it's a good game, I think it's fun, and I'm going to put it in B tier. Crash Mine Over Mutant, the sequel to Titans, which in my opinion wasn't as good as Titans. It involved a lot of backtracking without actually making the backtracking fun by doing different things with it. It didn't feel like the backtracking was worth it when you eventually got to the location you were trying to get to. I feel like this game had more potential. Really enjoyed the different styles of animation and the cutscenes in this game, but I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. Crash Insane Trilogy. This is a fantastic remake of the originals. In my opinion, and I know not everyone agrees with this, but this is the best way of playing the 3 original games. 3 classic games, up to date basically, it has to go in S tier. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. Now I'd say I'm willing to put this in S tier, to be honest. I think there's missed opportunity with this game when it comes to online mode. At the very least, they could have added cup tournaments online. They could have done a bunch of other modes as well. But let's look at what they did do with this game. They remade not only the original Team Racing, but they also included all of the Crash Nitro Kart tracks and brought back all the characters. The roster is huge. It's pretty much spans across the entire Crash universe. There's only a few characters that aren't in this game. They brought monthly content to the game where they would add a completely brand new track, They brought in new characters as well. The pit stop and the customization in this game is like, you have so many options. There's so many things to pick from. Not only that though, but the biggest thing is the gameplay, the controls, the way that the game feels. It's better than the original. The drifting, the inclusion of the blue flame, everything about this game is perfect, other than the online mode, which I think could have a bit more to offer. But weighing it all out, I'm willing to put that in S tier. And lastly, we have Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. This game is split between people, but in my opinion, playing through the game casually, this game is amazing. This game has more of a story, the levels are so fun and the best they've ever looked in a Crash game. The boss fights are really good, all the new characters are great. It's a fantastic game. If we're talking about full completion, then it would probably be ranked a bit lower because it's more frustrating than it is fun, but I'm not ranking it specifically on full completion, otherwise Crash Bash would be ranked lower. The whole game just feels so much bigger, and of course there's the new characters as well that you can play as. It's got multiple problems, but if we're talking about, like, you know, this is the first Crash game since Mind Over Mutant. It's so big and it's so good for a return that it has to be placed here. So that is where I'd rank all of the games, trying to be as objective as I can. That's why I'm doing a separate tier list for personal enjoyment. Games that I go back to often and have a bunch of fun on. The original trilogy is probably going to have to go in A tier. However, the Insane trilogy will be going in S tier. Because if I'm going to be playing the three games, any of these three games, I'm going to be playing it in the Insane trilogy version. CTR Nitro Fueled, S tier. Has to be S tier. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, S tier. Crash Team Racing Original, I mean, I'm going to be playing Team Racing Nitro Fueled over the original as well. Crash Nitro Kart, I don't find myself going back to this anymore. There are a few reasons to go back to this with Nitro Fueled, because of course the adventure mode isn't in Nitro Fueled. So if I want to play adventure mode, then sure, I'll go back and I'll have fun on it, but other than that, all the characters are in there, all the tracks are in there. I don't find myself going back to this anymore, especially with the updated controls in Nitro Fueled. It makes Nitro Kart even harder to play when you revisit it. Twinsanity, S tier. Wrath of Cortex, don't find myself coming back to this very often, so I'm going to be putting that in B tier. Crash Bash, I'll be putting in B tier as well. There's fun mini games in it, but I don't go back to it too often. Tag Team Racing, S tier. You know, I'm going to make sure that I put text somewhere up here to distinguish the two different tier charts, because I do not want this fucking tier list taken out of context. I am not saying Tag Team Racing is better than the original Team Racing or the original trilogy. Mind Over Mutant I never return to, I just never go back to it. Boom Bang can stay in D tier because it's Boom Bang. And the last one is Titans, which I'm going to be putting in A tier. I return to that game every now and then, not as often, because once I've done with it, I really don't feel like playing through it again for quite a while, whereas with Twinsanity and Tag Team Racing, I feel like they have more replayability and they'll often revisit those multiple times before revisiting Titans again. I think that's pretty accurate as my personal enjoyment scale. So that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Again, if any of these games ranked higher or lower than you think they should be, don't get mad. I just like Tag Team Racing, alright? I'm thinking of a meme and I'm gonna make it. You can do your own down below in the comment section if you want. You can do, you know, either one of them or both. I know the personal enjoyment one especially will be completely different for everyone. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Definitely subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you all in my next video.